Hello, everyone. This is Claudiu Murgan, the host of the Spiritual Inspire Show. And my guest today is Dr. Nicole Gruel. Dr. Gruel comes from a family where women are fierce in spirit and deeply passionate about making the most of any life situation. From her grandma's side, Nicole comes from a long line of samurai, 700 years or so. Dr. Nicole Gruel has a PhD in integral and transpersonal psychology. She's a past board member of International Association for Near-Death Studies, mentor for life coaches at American Center for the Integration of Spiritually Transformative Experiences, Gift Compass advisor and training facilitator, past New South Wales president of the Australian Association of Psychological Type, and she's an advisory board member of Spiritual Awakenings International. She's also trained in various healing, movement, and energy psychology modalities. She's the author of several books, Dancing with Dragons, Women of the Wise Earth, and The Power of Notes. Dr. Gruel, thank you for joining me today.
Claudiu, thank you so much for the invitation. It is my pleasure.
We discussed about starting this interview with a powerful prayer, which was published in one of your books. So I really want you to read that for us. Thank you.
Thank you. So this comes from Women of the Wise Earth. And this is an invitation to women and men of the Wise Earth. Sisters and brothers, welcome. We invite the spirits of fire to ignite and illuminate the inner flames. As we burn bright, may we empower others. We invite the spirits of water to cleanse and soothe the inner flow of grace. As we navigate the depths of womanhood and manhood, may we heal others. We invite the spirits of air to refresh and lift the wings of love. As we soar high and wide, may we breathe life into others. We invite the spirits of earth to ground and support all persons gathered. As we stand strong and whole, may we celebrate growth in others. Great Spirit, we thank thee for creating us as vessels through which we can come together in sacred recognition. Great Mother Earth, we thank thee for life and the infinite wisdom you pulsate. May we be clear channels to bring through your wild grace. Beloved sisters and brothers, we thank thee for hearing the call and responding with heart. May we travel in love and divine personhood together. May this offering find its way to the hearts and hands of sisters and brothers around the globe. May it serve and be our gift to humanity. May it ignite communion with the earth and peace within. And may it encourage sister and brother souls to dance in the glory of their divine essence. For this opportunity, we thank you.
Beautiful. How did this prayer come to you?
Oh, you're making me go on such a journey now, Claudio. Thank you. It's been such a while since I've reconnected with that prayer. The Women of the Wise Earth was a channeled, inspired piece. I had no intention of creating it. I believe it was a new moon, and the thought came, the vision came that this is the project. It was like an instruction. You are to gather women together. They are to meet at sacred sites, and you are to connect with that place, with the earth, and to speak wisdom from there. I had no idea what that meant and what I was supposed to do with that other than follow the instruction and say yes. I didn't at that stage know how many. And as the women started gathering, the number 33 became very clear. And so we gathered, and that particular prayer came through as well as one of the pieces that became this very eclectic work that is the voices of 33 people, the voices and images and life essence of these 33 women and their connection to land.
Yes, I mean, this prayer is so powerful and so present. I mean, can be applied, and we have to apply it in our daily lives because we really have to connect with nature. We have to connect with ourselves, within ourselves. And we lost touch with that. So I will try to spread that prayer as much as possible because it's beautiful.
Thank you for the reminder that I should do so too.
So do you think that women can express their spiritual side more these days, or is there a relaxation from the society at large for them to express themselves?
What an interesting question. There is a clear uprising and strengthening at this point in time, an interest in women's consciousness and a women's awakening movement. That's definitely happening. And it's happening as a reaction to a strong patriarchy that has been in place. Now, if you think of the pendulum of energies, that's a natural growth that's going to come out in our human psyche that seeks balance constantly in a world of opposites. So it's natural that historically that is happening right now. We just have to open our eyes to the world around us to see how patriarchy has taken over in the past several hundred years and created a bit of a mess.
Yes.
Now, that's not to say men are to blame, and it's not to say women are the saviors. I think we have to be very careful about that. And as one who has obviously dived deep into women's circles and the awakening movement, and this book, by the way, was 7, 8, 9 maybe years ago. It was a while ago. So I've been witness to some of these shifts that are going on, and we have to be equally aware of the shadow side of the feminine in this conversation. That I've also seen some very ugly things happening when women come into their power, but it's not necessarily a healthy one, or it's not in balance with the masculine. Mm-hmm. And so, I don't think this is a time for an either or. We have to come out of the masculine and move into only the feminine, because yet again, that's just a pendulum swing in the other direction. But honoring the feminine, understanding for men the feminine within themselves, honoring the masculine and the healthy masculine within themselves, same with the women. Gender, this is beyond gender, which I'm sure your community understand. We're talking about the energies. And so feeling into those, understanding how they play out in our inner world, in our outer world, in our relationships, in our own evolution, and then how we become co-creative citizens on this planet at this time. This is such a beautiful piece of the spiritual journey to really dive into that juicy space and understand it. Yeah.
In order to reach that balance, do you think that the masculine has to at least accept past mistakes and step back a little bit and let the feminine come forward?
I think that would help. I think the most empowered men I know are in touch with both their masculine and feminine. And they have the ability to stand strong as men and hold that presence and that space of the guardian, the protector. And they have the grace to step back and allow the feminine to rise in its glory and power when needed as well. So absolutely, we all have a lot of learning to do in how we as people that embody those different energies can hold them and navigate them in different situations for each other.
And based on your recent or recent channeling, do you think that is going to happen soon? Will the masculine step back and accept this past mistakes?
I think we're at such an interesting point in time. There's a lot going on this planet right now. I don't know is the quick answer to that. I really don't know. That's my most honest answer. I have a lot of hopes about what I would love to see happen, but I'm not one to know. And it's not like I sit and kind of, channel to higher presences or anything like that. I don't have any other answers that anyone doesn't have access to themselves. I walk this world with my eyes wide open. I think I think the urge for us as a species on this planet to self-correct is becoming stronger. And what I mean by that is to self-correct the things that are out of alignment and out of whack. We are the only species on the planet that are destroying ourselves. We're on a suicide mission in one direction right now.
Yeah.
And this planet will be just fine without us. Absolutely, it might be better off without us, and unfortunately, we'll take a lot of, a lot of other species along with us. That would be the really unfortunate picture. That's the darkest picture. And also, having said that, we are just a rock hurtling through space, and it in its own time is going to go through its journey, and there will be an end at some point, but we also don't know when that might be. But for now, we have the gift of being on this planet at this point in time, and we have the opportunity to actually be a presence on it that not only can be in harmony with the other living beings on this planet, but because we have access to consciousness and we have self-awareness, we have the capacity to do things that we have never even dreamed of on this planet yet. Our abilities, we don't have any idea how amazing we are, collectively especially. I mean, many individuals have tapped into this for themselves, but to then come together in these pods and do it in bigger windows, unbelievable things could happen just like that. So I have great hope. I feel in my bones that this is possible, Claudiu, in this lifetime. It's not a evolutionary journey that must take millions of years. We can do this right now, but we have to choose.
Yes, and to be honest, there's no single guest on this show who didn't accept the fact that only an increased level of consciousness can make us survive the phase we are going through right now. And if we don't do that, then yeah, most of us will perish, and that's the end of it. In your books, you talk about grounding. How can we do that more often?
Take your shoes off and connect with the earth. That's the simplest answer. We have a body, and this is a very physical form. This is our densest form that we get to engage with on a very dense planet in terms of our energy. And so particularly for spiritually inclined people who can often be space cadet energy, they can be like this, so much up and open here and like a small triangle and very disconnected from the ground. And look, there are reasons for that. You know, there might be past traumas. It might be very difficult and challenging to want to come into the body. I completely understand all those things. Even more reason why it's important to breathe, to connect with the elements, as we said in that prayer. You know, how do we connect with the body? How do we actually bring our spirit into ourself? Well, we use the body as a conscious tool. We use the physical elements, the natural elements, the heat in our body, etc., to, you know, the movement in our body, and we use it as a physical thing. We go out and walk in nature. We get active, you know, we get involved with other human beings. This is all beautiful stuff. And nature is probably one of our most profound not only teachers, but our profound resources that are available to pull us out of this space cadet mode through our bodies and into the physical earth, because our bodies, beyond our heads, our bodies understand how to be in communion with the earth. It's our heads and our hearts that have to catch up often with that journey. And it's not even a thinking through process, it's an allowing process. Go and just hang out with a river, hang out with the trees.
Yes, and pay our respects when we are in nature, and, you know, treat it with reverence, because they were here before us. So the forests, the trees, the rivers. Yes. What is a star child, please?
Well, my understanding of a star child is something that we all are to a degree. We all have stardust in our makeup and in our DNA. This planet and its evolution comes from stars, is star dust. and matter. So in that larger sense, you know, we are all star children, right? We're all children of this cosmic galaxy. But I think that question also comes to a particular conversation that some like to have right now, of a generation of people who feel connected to other presences within the universe, other planets, other civilizations. That's a journey for each person to tap into for themselves. Some people have clear access through their meditations, through channeling, through direct contact. I've met contactees, you know, people who feel also that their own DNA is not human DNA. So, and often these so-called star children have the idea is that many of them are of a generation that is here to help the planet at this time. They have a particular frequency of consciousness that they're tapped into, and a level of sensitivity. So there may also be several people who are highly sensitive, who identify as highly sensitive people, that may also identify as star beings, star children. Yes.
I mean, I'm rereading Barbara Marciniak's books, like the Family of Light and Bringers of Dawn. And these books are pretty scary if you are not prepared. The way she explains how we were created and how life came on this earth, and it's pretty radical. So yes, for those who want to learn more, they can also read that, but be prepared.
And it can be hugely challenging for someone who identifies as that, then to, you know, how do they have conversations with other people about who they are and their identity and what they're here to do, particularly if they have a strong conviction that I am on this planet at this time to do this. This is my mission. And unless you're with a like-minded community who have some idea or acceptance of what you're talking about, that can be such an isolating journey and just make life really hard.
Yes, indeed. I really liked how you structured the dancing with the dragons, like dragons of the body, dragons of the heart, and dragons of the mind. Can you please expand on it?
Absolutely. So interesting chronology. This one came just before this one, and it was almost as though this was like a vacuum cleaner. This cleared out the system and the way to make space, and then something else could pop through, which was much more love-filled, light-filled, fun, collective. But this one's quite dark. It's dark with light at the end of the tunnel. So this book came from a personal experience. I was about 29 years old, and I went through 3 days of spontaneous states of ordinary and non-ordinary consciousness. This was triggered by a physical condition, but I'd never entered those kinds of states before from this physical condition. And so for 3 days, I was lying on a couch and I had no control over where my consciousness was taking me. All I could do was be aware of where the journey was going. So I liken it to two processes. One is a shamanic clearing and one is a kundalini clearing. And so the shamanic was very down through my left leg and my right leg and down into the ancestral roots. It really felt like roots of a tree going deep, 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 deep down. And I met characters from my own lineage that I'd never met before. And each of them, we had an interaction where whatever was left unresolved in their life that had carried on and remains in the DNA that I carry as the present person living on this day, that was cleared. And once that was done, on it moved to the next person and the next person. And it just kept going until that was complete. And then once that had happened, there was a process where the energy then moved upwards through the channels. And it felt like walking through molasses, you know, with a knife and trying to cut its way. And this was the heavy, sticky residual of things that had happened in the past that I had either ignored, suppressed, knowingly or unknowingly, just not wanted to deal with or not known how to deal with. And some of them were past traumas as a child. But there was something in my psyche that was ready. in that moment to deal with it. And this is what, I've realized how intelligent and wise our own system is, way beyond what we can think about it. It just has a wisdom of its own.
Indeed.
So the dragons was a metaphor, if you will, for each of those chakra points. And it's like talking about the shadow side of each of the chakras. We love talking about the light-filled side and the positives of the chakras. But what I encountered on my personal journey was, what are the blockages at each point? What is that density, that molasses, that darkness that was holding the potential of that space within my being to operate at its fullness? And so that's what the clearing was. So Dancing with Dragons, it's the 7 dragons that I end up naming there. So what do we have? Disconnection. So we move up through the chakras this way. So disconnection, moving into disgust in the sacral, moving into destruction at the solar plexus, despair at the heart. I was clearly having a D moment. Disease up here in the throat, dream and deceit. And so these dragons, if you will, presented themselves. They were really like archetypal energies. And so that's where that book comes in. And I create them as archetypal forms and describe them in that way because it allows others to obviously then connect with it themselves and own that journey if that's relevant to their journey. For them. So it's a very handy tool in some ways. If you want a clearing and a therapeutic process, this is a great one to do.
Yeah, good to know. So did you have any glimpse of the real dragon from a different realm while you are going through these processes or later on?
It's fascinating, Claudiu. When I was writing the book, and I'm not quite sure why the metaphor of dragons came again. I had no prior interest or fascination with them. But maybe it's because I realized towards the end of the book, it was probably because I am a mix of East and West. My father was French, my mother's Japanese. And of course, dragons emerge in the mythology of both historically, but both very differently. In the East, dragons are noble creatures, often to be feared and respected, but they often come as bearers of wonderful things. Whereas, of course, in the West, one must slay the dragon. There is a darkness to it that must be defeated. And so I think as a natural combination of East and West, this mix between a slaying of the dragon or a conquering of the dragon, but also an honoring of how that dragon is a bringer of something absolutely amazing. Those themes weave through it as dragons. So when I was writing the book, I got to the heart level actually, and then I wasn't able to write anymore. It just stopped when I was at the heart, and the book, it just came out. It was such a quick writing process, and it was just very chronological from beginning through to end, barely any editing, boom, 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 straight through. And it stopped at the heart. And so I packed up my tent. I put it in the back of my car. I said to my family, I'm going. I don't know when I'm coming back. I'll be back when I'm ready. And off I went with a notepad, with my computer and my stuff that I needed to keep getting through. And I found this amazing camping space. In hindsight, it was pretty stupid as a woman on my own out in the bush at the end of a dirt track that you have to get to, big beach. There were wallabies, and it got very wild there. I ended up with some ticks on my body at one point because I was really in bushland. And but there was one point where this huge storm came over, and I was just on this sprawling beach, and the clouds came rolling in, and I swear to you, there was this massive dragon cloud in the sky. It was a cloud formation. It couldn't have been anything else but a dragon. And I guess I was just so deep into it by that point. That's where my lenses were.
So we create our own reality.
Indeed we do, up until the rain clouds. And the fascinating thing, this is the journey that anyone in your audience will know as an author. If you release a book, once you release a piece like this into the world, you lose control of it. It's like you birth something and you have to let it go. And it's fascinating what comes back to you, what the universe bounces back to you. And so I've met no shortage of people with these incredible dragon stories afterwards. And it's a whole heap of fun. I mean, who doesn't love talking about dragons? It's great.
Yes. Your latest book, The Power of Notes, is a self-empowerment guide for experiences of non-ordinary transcendent experiences. Can you expand on that too, please?
Absolutely. Thank you. So this one here, The Power of Notes, How Non-Ordinary Transcendent Experiences, that's notes, transform the way we live, love, and lead. So this is a reader-friendly version of a 660 plus page doctoral study. Yeah, I did my research with 20 people who had had life-changing notes, life-changing transformative experiences. And there was a great variation in what those were. So on the end of the most dramatic, there were things like near-death experiences, there were plant medicine, epiphanies, Kundalini awakenings. You know, we had a real nice eclectic mix there. And what I was interested in is, after you've had one of these experiences, what happens in the short term and in the long term? And particularly, how does our personality, our blueprint for operation in our conscious world, how does our personality change by these things that are beyond our personality, if at all? That was the question going into it. And some really fascinating pieces came out of that. So the model of personality I used was based in Jungian theory, Jung's theory of personality type. And what I discovered, a beautiful surprise that came out of it, was that actually our dominant gifts that we have through our personality, so if we're, you know, more intuitive types, or we're more thinking types, or, you know, sensate types, whatever those dominant forms are, when we have these experiences that connect us to our core self, what happens, it seems, is that the volume is turned up on our core capacities of our personality, meaning we become even more of who we are. So if I was a deeply intuitive type beforehand, and I saw connections in the world, and I, you know, looked for symbols in places, and I had a very metaphorical understanding, after such an experience, that ability, it's like it's the radio, it's turned on, it's turned up, it's refined to the point where it then brings in the spiritual content as well. So my ability to perceive is widened massively. My aha moments of clarity are sharpened. And this was true of all of the gifts of personality. So in a nutshell, I wanted to condense those understandings and some of those stories into a very practical book, because what I realized in speaking with so many people who've had these experiences is, one, we can lack language. How do I even talk about that which is beyond words? Two, the people around me think I'm a bit nuts. Maybe I've even questioned my own sanity. What do I do about my relationships, which often might be breaking down as a result of becoming a bit different? And the other is, something powerful has been awoken in me. I don't really feel like I can carry on living the life I was living until now. Something is stirring. I want to walk into something new, but I don't quite know what that is or how to do it. So the book is a coaching guide, really very practical in terms of identifying what kind of experiences did you have, what are some of the after effects of those experiences, and now what on earth do you want to do about it, if anything?
Yes, it's interesting. And a couple of things, sometimes during these, let's say, journeys, and I'm talking from the perspective of doing plant medicine, you are being told that you have to give up certain relationships, which are not energetically good for you. So you have to break that cord right away or very soon. And second, did you also look at how long these effects lasted with these people?
They vary. So what we can say is there are immediate short-term after effects of many variations: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and then there are long-term. Some people will describe their integration journey as something that's complete. Other people I spoke to who had their first experiences decades before will say things like integration is a lifelong journey. So there's no fixed timeline to any of this. And we are continually evolving beings. And also the nature of people's experiences differ. Sometimes folks might have a one-off or a series or a cluster. Sometimes people will have a snowball. They start and then they grow and carry on over a lifetime. We can't predict who will have what, and personality doesn't have any role to play in that either, you know, in terms of who's going to have what patterns. But it does certainly tell us the flavors that can emerge through that time. So there's no brief answer on the how long.
Yeah, I mean, the changes can be so profound that could be scary, and that person just don't want to do it again or even think about it, and then it hangs in there without being acknowledged. So that's not good, because it has to be integrated.
Absolutely. And the most drastic changes is when someone's paradigm before the experience is wildly different from what happens, the content within it, to where they're going afterwards. So the greater the gap, the more they have to reconcile. They're the hardest ones for people to go through. And so it's interesting to contrast those adult experiences usually with something like a child's experience, where children, when they have these experiences, their paradigms are not so set. Their frameworks are not as fixed. And so they have it, and it becomes so easily integrated and accepted as part of what is. And so they walk the world with usually much more ease in terms of accepting the experiences. Their challenge is being accepted by others because they're so naturally within themselves.
Yes. And I assume that you also had some plant medicine experiences. Were they so transformative for you as well, or you had something else much more powerful than that?
I haven't had any recent plant medicine experiences. In my younger years, I dabbled in psychedelics quite a bit. They were certainly transformative. The way I would describe them for me is they were short doorways. They were doorways to places that I later discovered. I went down a very austere and serious yogic path for a good decade. I was, I shaved my head a few times. I was ready to put on my saffron robes and live in the ashram. I was fully dedicated to that way of being, until I realized the next step was I had to give myself entirely to guru, and I couldn't do that. And that was my cutoff point. And of course I had to journey with, is my ego too strong? Am I too self-centered? Why can't I surrender to this? And, so that was my own journey, and I came to my own conclusions there. Again, there's no right or wrong. If anyone's relating to that, there's no right or wrong in that, each to their own path. But what I realized through my yogic pathway was I could access those same doorways without ingesting substances. Mm-hmm. And that for me anyway, that was a much sounder, balanced, steady way to connect. I've always, it seems, had quite open access in the third eye. And if anything, I think dabbling in psychedelics early on probably just exploded that in some ways, that I then had to rein in with healthier forms like meditation, etc. later on. Yeah. But having said that, I've met many people who plant medicine has been perfect for them. So again, it's so individual. My only warning to people who, are on the path of plant medicine, you will already know this, but those who are interested in it, is there are a lot of charlatans out there as well. This is a big industry right now, a big underground industry. And there are many who are taking advantage of people who are so open and wanting and desperate of some kind of an experience or an answer or a healing in their lives. So I would just say, tread very carefully on that path. Do your research well. Find out who you might journey with. Get to hear from others who have journeyed with them. understand how grounded they are in their own traditions as well and within their own self, because at the end of the day, this is about respecting the plant and nature. And if you encounter those who are disrespectful of both nature and the process, you could wind up in a bigger mess than where you started out from.
Yeah, you're so right. You have to journey with someone a group you trust, and otherwise there is no point in doing it. Yes, you're right. You are quite an adventurer, and early in your life you traveled to many sacred sites. Which one did you influence you the most?
Oh, they're all so different. One that really sticks out in my memory is the Yucatan Peninsula and the ancient structures that are there, the pyramids. And one in particular, I don't remember which one, but I remember walking up it. It was one that was in the jungle, dense jungle. And it was one building, not one of the main ones, but a bit off the side. And I climbed up and I just sat there up towards the stairs at the top, and I had a massive recollection, what was like a memory, like a past life recall. And I really didn't know much about the culture, place, or people or history at the time. So this was like watching a movie that I then had to piece apart later on. And there were some quite clear symbols, the black jaguar, the butterfly that came through. And the story that I understood was I think it was the daughter of a shaman, something like that. And but later on, it should have been no surprise to me, because my mother, born in Japan, actually had a very strong connection as a young woman to the Aztec and the Maya and the culture in that part of the world. And she lived in Mexico City for 5 years, became fluent in Spanish, dived deep into ancient studies and the symbology. And what was driving her studies on the outer layer was a deep connection of some kind of a past life connection happening there. That was not the language she would put to it, but it was almost as though those experiences from the past were so real to her in her present life, they were replaying out. So it should really have come of no surprise that perhaps we are intertwined as souls, and there is a story from some place in the past weaving out again. So that one was a strong one in terms of connecting me to a shamanic path and medicine in general. And yeah.
I mean, Australia, going back to where you live, Australia is a continent, filled with stories about Aboriginal people and how they live with the earth, on the earth. I mean, they know the environment they live in. Do you have you met any of Aboriginal tribes? Are you in contact with anyone in order to, save some of that knowledge?
Well, I know of Aboriginal people, absolutely people that identify as Indigenous and have Indigenous ancestry. I grew up in Australia as part of the non-Aboriginal culture that is disconnected to land and place and the first peoples of this land. So like others, I've had to make a conscious effort to try and understand that connection and journey with it. So I've been to several locations in Australia to try and understand and to be as respectful as possible and to learn. There's no particular grouping of people on land or place that I learn from in that way, but I'm certainly always open to that and deeply respectful of the land that I've been brought up on and continue to be connected to. And of course, Australia at this time, many are speaking of a connection of Uluru as a point with other points across the globe, and a time of awakening that is happening as the music lines, as the song lines are reconnected. So we will see, if that is something that is to be actualized. It's a curious relationship here in Australia between the First Nations people who remain connected to land, spirit, culture, because there are many who through the atrocities and wrongdoings of colonization have become disconnected. So we can't have a stereotype that says everyone who has Aboriginal ancestry is connected to land in that way, at least consciously. And then also, a non-Aboriginal population on this land, some of who would like to be connected and are deeply respectful, and the vast majority who, are either not aware, don't care, or, are disconnected from that. It's a strange mix that we have, and we have a lot of deep healing that needs to happen on this land. Yeah.
Yes. What are some of the projects you are working on these trying times?
Well, one of the biggest is a community called the Agents of Awesome. So this is supporting a group of people who they've had spiritually transformative experiences. Something has been awoken in them. They understand that the planet has issues right now and that they can be active participants within that. And so I coach and mentor people through that journey of understanding their gifts, their awakening experiences, and how those can then be applied. How do you get your gumboots on in strategic ways to apply your gifts in the world, whether you're an artist, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're, however those manifestations come out through you and from you. How do you ground your wisdom and knowing so that you can be an active agent? You can be on this planet at this time and work together with others. So we have a Facebook community called Agents of Awesome, Agents of Awesome Tribe. I think if anyone's interested in joining that, that's kind of the first step to start those conversations, and it can go very deep from there.
Any other books, upcoming books?
Oh, there's one that's a secret in the works, Claudiu. There's a couple of projects bubbling, let's put it that way, but it's not the time or place to start revealing just yet.
Okay, understood. Any other final thoughts?
Well, I thank your listeners for joining us. And this is such a special time on this planet. And each of us can be part of it in incredible ways. And from the people that I speak with who have had awakening experiences, there's often many things that hold them back from being active in what they really feel is in their hearts, what they vision is possible. And I think that's one of the biggest dangers, is how we can hold ourselves back. The fears, the self-doubts, the messages that we tell ourselves, the programming from the past that limits us, not wanting to offend other people, because often, these are very sensitive folks that don't want to step on other people's toes. My message to your listeners in that way is for them to have the courage, have the courage, have the balls, have the guts to step forward in this time and respond to that calling that is coming through you. If there is something there, listen to that prompting, honor it by taking action on it and stepping forward. And this doesn't have to be massive, I'm changing the world kind of actions. This begins in our gardens, in our homes, in our relationships, and in our communities. These are where the most impactful changes can happen, within ourselves. Where are those places where our heartache is? Where are those places that are calling for our attention and our tending and loving to? And how can we amplify the love in those places so that we can create more good in terms of what's going on in these times? So get on with it.
Yes, we have to be ourselves, because a job is just a job. We'll be there tomorrow and the work will still be there 24 hours, but we have to take care of ourselves and our friends and family. So because our health and our spiritual path is much more important. Dr. Gruel, thank you very much for your time.
Claudio, this has been such a delightful conversation. Thank you for your show and what you do.
Thank you. And for my viewers, please watch the show, share it, and you can subscribe to my Patreon page where I provide exclusive content. Until next time, love and gratitude.